What's cracking, ladies and gentlemen? 49 coming at you another community shoutcast for the Reddit Dota 2 League Season 4. I'm going to be casting Mighty Meepos up against Absolute Entropy, game number 2. Wasn't able to catch game number 1 as I was casting Team Amplified up against SFB, Shining Friendship Battalion. So joining me as my co-caster will be Floydian, and I believe the surprise captain of Fiery Soul, something along those lines. If you guys are there, oh actually I should probably let them know. So hopefully they should be joining me. So Absolute Entropy Gaming, I believe it was a really close game number 1 from what one of the players, Jackie02, was telling me. So they've got first pick. It'll be interesting to see who they decide to let through the draft. Mighty Meepos, we might even be seeing a Meepo pickup. Wouldn't be betting on it, but you never know these days. So Lycanthrope banned out, very standard first ban, just because that Death Ball push power coming up from him. If you lose a fight against Lycan, you're going to be losing far too many towers. You get that gold lead, you get that early snowball going. It means your supports are farmed as all hell, especially if you have something like a Shadow Shaman on top of that Lycanthrope. You take a few towers, get an early Blink Dagger on that Shadow Shaman, gives you a huge increase in your ganking and your teamfight presence, especially since every time you have that Mass Serpent Wards up, blink in, hex one, shackle the other, drop the Serpent Wards, you pretty much win the fight off the back of that. Invoker banned out by Mighty Meepos. The issue with Invoker being first, second banned is while he is a very powerful hero, is you have to build your draft around him and you need a very good player. It's something that I've noticed a lot casting a lot of amateur tournaments is the teams that sometimes when they do let Invoker through the pool, and when the other team pick him up, if they don't draft around the Invoker, if they don't have an excellent Invoker player, the pick actually gets wasted and the Invoker isn't able to accomplish all too much. So Invoker isn't one of those free win heroes that you have to necessarily first pick first ban in every single game. Even if you do have an excellent Invoker player and the draft is going well, there are ways to counter and control that Invoker since he's got a very weak laning presence and he doesn't really take off until he gets a fair few amount of levels. So Batrider being banned out, and I think that's one of my co-casters sounding in. Floydian? Or is that a surprise captain of Fiery Souls? Okay, it looks like we might be having a few mic issues with my co-casters, but hopefully they should be tuning in shortly. Batrider has been nerfed in the latest patch with Lasso costing 225 mana, so it's 75 mana increase. The only reason for that is just to bring it back in line with the fact that Blink Dagger no longer costs mana. Luna actually second ban coming up from Mighty Meepos. Usually a bit rare to see Luna banned out this early on, so I'm assuming it might be a respect ban, since I wasn't able to see game number 1, so Absolute Entropy Gaming, they might have had a fantastic Luna performance. But Luna, probably the best tri-lane carry at the moment, especially if you want to clash Tri-v-Tri, because you've got that Lucent Beam, which is long range, low cooldown, high amount of burst damage, as well as that 0.6 second stun to interrupt channeling abilities, so Timbersaw can't tip and chain out, they can't TP out, or if you've got someone like a Shadow Shaman who's channeling that shackle, it can interrupt it with the beam, as well as that the Lunar Blessing providing the extra damage to the rest of your tri-lane support heroes, especially if you've got a triple range support tri-lane, can mean a huge increase in damage, especially if you decide to throw an Ancient Apparition Chilling Touch on top of that. One of my flatmates actually taking a shower in the background, so I do apologize if that noise spills on through. Disruptor is the first pickup for Absolute Entropy Gaming. Excellent support hero. Has been seeing a fair amount of action lately in the competitive scene ever since the buffs with the fact that he has that Aghanim Scepter upgrade, as well as the increase in the Glimpse cast range. The reason why Disruptor is such a powerful support hero is if you don't kill the Disruptor, you lose a fight. Similar to playing against a Bloodseeker or another chasing hero like a bounty hunter, you're going to lose 2 extra heroes during the route, since you can glimpse them back. It means that you have to either win a team fight or don't engage, or you have to always kill that Disruptor if you want to minimize your losses. And Wraith King picked up as the first hero for Mighty Meepos. Excellent tri-lane hero, either in that 1 or 2 position, or in the 4 position. I actually really like Wraith King as a 4 position hero because of the fact that he makes a very strong roaming duo if you have, for instance, Wraith King and Ancient Apparition. Excellent support duo since the Wraith Fire Blast gives enough time for the Cold Feet to proc. And with Wraith King with Reincarnate, he could go straight up ham. He doesn't really care if he dies. In fact, when he has Reincarnate up, he wants to die, just because you've got that 75% movement and attack speed snare to give your team all that space and all that time to really re-engage. Dazzle picked up as well. Excellent. He's probably an A or S tier support hero. Has been nerfed in the latest patch with the fact that you no longer have to mini-stun at the very start of level 3 and level 4 Poison Touch. But despite that, an incredibly powerful support hero just because he scales so well in all stages of the game. If my co-casters are there, a little sign of life from either. Floydian? Oh, yeah, I could just barely hear you. How you doing, mate?
Oh shit, alright, hold on.
Just turn up your mic settings a wee bit. I can barely hear you. And we've got Nyx Assassin as the second pickup for Absolute Entropy Gaming. Could be used either as an offlane hero or as a tri-lane support hero. I believe it's team, not Liquid, the team that Ike's Mike is with. I always forget the name for that. Is that Sneaky Nyx Assassins or NAR? They like to run the Disruptor Nyx. Yeah, they like to run the Disruptor Nyx dual lane, where you max out the Thunderstrike on the Disruptor, just because it's so difficult to engage with them since Nyx Assassin has the Impel and the Carapace, and Disruptor can provide that covering fire with the Thunderstrike. So how you doing, Floydian? No, it's pretty early for you.
Yeah, it's not actually that early. It's 1 in the morning. Normal for a Friday night.
Oh, okay, not too shabby. Your thoughts so far on the drafts?
So far, Absolute Entropy has very broad lineup. Disruptor, as we've seen IX Mike do, he likes to take a mid sometimes. He's done it as well. Nyx can go in the offlane, he can go in mid, they can both support. Very good balance all around. They have great team fight, good counter initiate, lots of pick off, it's great. Mighty Meepos, again the same thing. Dazzle is probably going to be a support, but I mean he can go mid. Wraith King can support, he can carry. I mean he can jungle if they're really pressed for experience. But now there's a Centaur on the field. So that's probably going to be a carry Wraith King. That's where I'd put him right
Yeah, we've got a 1 or 2 position Wraith King, offlane Centaur Warrunner with the Dazzle, so they haven't picked their mid or their secondary support hero. And Absolute Entropy.
You might see a Dazzle mid here. I mean, it's not without possibility. He's a really strong mid hero.
Yeah, he definitely does win the lane, but the issue with the Dazzle is it's just kind of wasted on him. Whereas, like, while he will win that 1v1 matchup and do very well on that, he just doesn't provide enough impact in either ganking presence or in team fights with that lead. Whereas you compare it to someone like a Brewmaster, even if Brewmaster loses the lane, so long as he gets to level 6, if he's able to pick up a rune, he can rotate and gank. Dazzle can't really do that. I mean, you could gank with Poison Touch, but compare that to a Brewmaster with a Clap and a Primal Split, it just doesn't have that same kind of impact in the early to mid game.
Yeah, that's true, but you have to remember, if Dazzle gets a fast level 6, he can get level 3 of the Poison Touch and 1 shallow or heal or something like that. And with his read minus armor, his Poison Touch actually does a lot of damage early on. Because it's all physical damage, that's his speed. Right?
Yeah, that's true.
So he can go and gank the lane with the Wraith King, weave someone, he stuns, and then Wraith King hits him with 400 damage.
That's certainly something to keep in mind. Dazzle is a fairly flexible hero. You can run a mid in that case, just because he is incredibly powerful in that mid lane. He's got high base damage, excellent attack point, 550 range, and he's got all these ways to be to clear out the wave and to control the hero with either max shadow wave, you use that to burst down the creep wave to ensure that you get runes, or if you go for more points of poison touch, just use that to bully them out of the lane. So Mighty Meepos deliberating on their 4th pickup. They've already got their offlaner and their tri-lane decided, so they're probably going to be looking to pick up either the secondary support or their mid. Usually mid is kind of reserved till 4th or 5th pick, since probably 5th pick, since mid heroes can be so easily counted. So they probably want to pick up their secondary support in this case. Assuming we have a Centaur Warrunner offlane with Dazzle support hero, who would you like to see with the Dazzle and the Wraith King?
Honestly, I'd like to see someone like a Templar assassin. She can probably destroy Brewmaster in the lane, and she combos so well.
Floydian is a prophet, and he has predicted it. Yeah, there you go. Templar Assassin going to be in that mid lane. One of the things that you have to keep in mind with Mighty Meepos is they actually can pick up a Shadow Demon. Shadow Demon still is in the pool, and Dazzle and Shadow Demon is probably one of the best support duos in the meta right now, because the advantage of that is if you initiate on the Dazzle, Shadow Demon can save him with the Disruption. If you initiate on the Shadow Demon, you've got the Shallow Grave coming out from the Dazzle. You can't focus either of them down, and that means they could get all their spells off, and on top of that, you've got Wraith King with the Reincarnate. So Shadow Demon runs up, you've got the Poison Touch to snare them, so Shadow Demon can get in position, follow up the Disruption, Soul Catcher, Wraith King runs with the Wraith Fire Blast, and that's a dead hero. There's no way he could get out of that. And the two of them scale excellently into the later stages of the game. Dazzle's Weave and Shallow Grave is always relevant, and Shadow Demon Disruption is an incredibly powerful defensive ability. In the early stages of the game, you use it aggressively, but the later the game goes, the more you want to save it to use on your teammates. Just good to get out of jail free card, similar to the Abaddon Aphotic Shield. If one of your heroes is caught out with a stun, you disrupt them, forces the enemy team, since they can't focus them down, to either back off or just hang around and commit, and that gives you time to be the counter initiate. So the Templar Assassin in that mid lane should be dominating that Brewmaster. But at the same time, they could decide to switch it up. I mean, we have seen Brewmaster being run in the off lane or in the safe lane, just because he doesn't necessarily have to go mid. All he really needs is a fast blink to be active in a fast 6. We have been seeing a bit of a resurgence of him. What are your thoughts on him, Floydian?
Honestly, I don't think that's a great pickup because Brewmaster and Nyx are both heroes that require getting really, really close to be effective.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Nyx Assassin can mana burn into it and maybe stun if, you know, the position is right.
Yep.
But I mean, Brewmaster's going to be completely caught by the chrono.
Another thing to keep in mind is Faceless Void's a pretty subpar carry against someone like a Wraith King, because he relies on that Alpha Strike advantage of being able to kill off 1 or 2 heroes during that Chronosphere. Wraith King, if you kill him during a Chronosphere, he's just going to reincarnate. So you have to focus down the Dazzle in that case. Since Centaur Warrunner is too tanky to really fall down unless you get a significant gold lead. And Templar Assassin, if she has refraction charges up, sorry, you can't really burst it down during the Chronosphere. So yeah, Faceless Void, bit of an interesting carry pickup.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if I were him, I'd probably go something like a Midas or some kind of combination just because the 6 seconds is 6 seconds
Yeah, that's true. And it's interesting to note that the 5th bans for both teams, Mighty Meepos banning out the Lich, so fearing the Lich Faceless Void combination, and Absolute Entropy banning out the Rubik, so they're fearing the fact that Rubik can steal the Chronosphere from the Void and return it against his team. While Faceless Void is unhindered by Rubik's Chronosphere, if you catch out the rest of his team, that can be quite critical. Since Faceless Void, he has to leap in to be able to use that Chronosphere, so Rubik will always be able to steal that Chronosphere, so that's the only other active ability he has. So good recognition coming up from both teams, banning out that combination of heroes. So Mighty Meepos. Yeah, Witch Doctor with the Faceless Void, that's a great combination, especially if you decide to run it as an aggressive tri-lane, since you've got the cast to set it up, Disruptor to lock him in place and pull him back with the Glimpse, and then later on you've got Static Storm and the Witch Doctor Death Ward during the Chronosphere. Silencer picked up from Mighty Meepos. So excellent counter initiation hero, since when Faceless Void leaps in, before he could use that Chronosphere, if you're fast with your fingers, you could Global Silence, that means you can catch out the Faceless Void, or once the Chronosphere is dropped, if you're able to use that Global Silence, you prevent the rest of his team to be able to really do their work, since I've got 2 melee heroes, that with their Silence, they can't do anything during that Chronosphere without getting themselves caught in as well. And Disruptor, if all he could do is right click, that's pretty much a wasted Chronosphere, unless the Faceless Void is significantly farmed or able to pick off the Dazzle in these engagements. I'm not really, at the same time though. And we've got the Timbersaw as the offlaner, so it's going to be a tri-lane Nyx Assassin. The issue with the silence in that 4 position role though is, since he needs a fair amount of EXP and gold to be relevant, just because he is so squishy, it depends on how well the lane phase goes. That's the thing to keep in mind. Yeah, definitely. That's a great point. Just because Wraith King and Dazzle is actually a pretty potent support duo. Since you've got the stun coming up from the Wraith King, the Poison Touch to be the snare him, as well as the snare coming in from the Wraith Fire Blast. And once you pick up a few points in the aura, the two can jungle together if nothing else is happening to keep up their farm and the levels. Alright, so Floydian, you want to introduce the players over from Mighty Meepos, and I'll do the same for the players over on Team Absolute Entropy. Alrighty, so over on Team Absolute Entropy, Jackie02 over on that mid-position Brewmaster, Watt on that off-lane Timbersaw, the Film Boys on that Nyx Assassin, so he's going to be that 4 position, Saint Eel on the 5 position Disruptor, and Timo Him on that Faceless Void, so they're going to be clashing tri-beat-tri. Would probably have to give the advantage over to Absolute Entropy, because I've got a lot more reliable engagement and disengagement, since you've got the Thunderstrike provide vision prevent it from juking, you've got the stun coming out from the Nyx Assassin, and the Carapace to be then negate a lot of the damage coming out from that tri-lane, but at the same time, Faceless Void compared to the Silencer and that carry position, or even the Wraith King. Wraith King has a lot more laning presence, or the Silencer, he could do a lot more DPS. And on that safe lane, Timbersaw has a huge advantage.
Great dinner on the way. Yes, good is. This is giving us a lift between that bankers or like Betty Lane.
Yeah, that's something to keep in mind as well. Both Wraith King and Silencer, it's kind of difficult to judge which one's going to be carrying based on their builds. Yeah, that's definitely the giveaway there. Since the issue with that 4-position Wraith King is you have to get a few successful kills. Yeah, it's going to be that 1-position Wraith King. Since, I mean, the reason why they picked up that Silencer is just to drop that ultimate in those engagements. They don't really need him to provide the DPS from the glaives or the last word. That's just icing on the cake. You want your Wraith King to get farmed so he can stand tall in these engagements. So if he gets caught in the Chronosphere, and if he's the only one, if he dies, he can just reincarnate right back in. And they're switching up their lane, so... Yeah, they know they can't fight this with a Faceless Void compared to a Wraith King, since he doesn't have that aggressive presence. While he can time walk in, you need some kind of setup and some kind of damage to bring them down. Compare that to a Wraith King who has not only the Wraithfire Blast, but the Mortal Strike. Provides a lot more early to mid-game DPS than the Faceless Void. Good recognition coming up from Absolute Entropy Gaming, but that means that while that's happening, Wraith King's getting a lot of CS uncontested. And in the mid lane, looks like the Templar Assassin farming up a Storm. Jackie02 drops that clap, but going to be eating a lot of damage from the Refraction as well as the Side Blades. The reason why Templar Assassin is such a powerful mid hero, you line up the angles, you can deny and harass them at the same time, or last hit and harass them. And when you're against the melee hero, it's that much harder since you have to be constantly eating those hits. Saniel guarding the rune for his... But the issue with having that, if they were to run with the support Silencer as well as the Dazzle, is you can't really rotate. While Dazzle can provide that poison touch, Silencer doesn't really have any form of lockdown. You've got a small amount of damage coming out from the last word as well as the glaives. But Templar Assassin's all the damage you need. You just need a way to be able to lock them in place or to snare them. So Absolute Entropy Gaming, at the same time, they need Nyx Assassin and the Disruptor to go in for ganks, since Disruptor only has the glimpse. Should be interesting to see how this engagement goes. Good pull coming out from the supports. Drawing away that creep wave will be interesting to see if Wraith King actually should have tanked the creep wave right overhead to prevent it from going to tower range. Since that means that, since the creep wave is going to be tanking the tower, they're going to go down a lot faster. So that means the next creep wave, when it arrives, will be pushing closer towards their lane. Old school. Yeah, Crimson Kisa build, and while that's happening, we've got the smoke gank. We've got a gank coming in mid, Templar Assassin, lean in, Yell, flees for his life, dodges the impale, and that's a lot of time wasted for the support players. And while that's happening, Void, he's going to be very careful. It's the reason why Centaur Warrunner is such a powerful offlane here. He's actually gone for 2 points in Hoop Stomp instead of 2 in Double Edge. Highly disagree with this build. You want to get, if he had that 2 points on the Double Edge, just walk in right now, just Double Edge the Void, catches him out in the Hoof Stomp. Doesn't decide to go in with the Double Edge. I guess he doesn't have Tranquil Boots yet, so he's playing it safe. But it's the reason why Centaur Warrunner is such a difficult offlane hero, is if you leave him alone against your carry here, just walk in and Double Edge them in the face, and if you're trying to place pressure on him with the return and with his high strength gain, he's difficult to bully at the lane. So he could be in... He actually goes in, it's misplay coming out from Bareface, picks up the Tranquil Boots, but that gives Nyx Assassin time to be able to line up that stun. Let's see if he can land this one. He lands it. Actually, a time lock coming in. Bareface drops the stun, but catches up the Film Boy's Spike Carapace, so he's going to be copying that stun in return. Decides to run through, might try to kill Saint Eel. Timo him, actually taking a lot of damage. He actually gets first blood. Centaur Warrunner gets one. You're going to back away now, my friend. He's going to take one more right click, and Disruptor gets that revenge kill. But when you feed first blood on your one position, Faceless Void, he glimpses back Templar Assassin before he takes a fall. Never mind. You can't destroy that meld hit with glimpse. And that's 2 over for Mighty Meepos. Good plays coming out from them. And in that tri lane, Wraith King farming up a Storm uncontested. Chosen to go for Treads. Personally, I prefer Phase Boots on the Wraith King, unless you decide to go for a Blink Dagger. But I feel like Blink Dagger on Wraith King is fairly situational. It gives you a lot of early game presence, but if you don't win the game in the first 20 to 30 minutes, or at least take racks, that Blink Dagger isn't the greatest pickup. Bigger fan personally of Phase into Drums, and then maybe something like a BKB to give you that engagement capability, since the biggest issue with the melee carry is time on target. If you're not hitting them, you're not doing any damage, and if you're not doing any damage, why the hell are you playing that hero to begin with? It's the reason why you always, Lifestealer for instance is an extremely powerful tri-lane carry hero, because he has that open wounds as well as his fast movement speed, so with Phase Drum, he can run up and get all the right clicks in the world. And that gives him the time and the space to be able to deal that damage. Templar Assassin's Runes.
He's gonna go Blink Dagger this game. Gotta get bottom, maybe. Wisely dodged.
Yeah, good dodge coming out. What makes you think Wraith King isn't going to go for the Blink Dagger build?
Is level 6 right now. At 6 minutes.
Doesn't need to, cause like second like you don't have any way to use Wraith King's ultimate.
That's true. The primary reason for the...
Blink Dagger is not good against Disruptor.
Yeah, you've got that glimpse.
Blink back.
Or you could blink in and you could drop that Static Storm, since he's got a faster cast point than you do, so you could catch yourself out. Actually, TheFierySnake? Yeah, we're catching you, but you keep cutting out intermittently. I think it could be, yeah, internet issues or maybe mic issues. Try enabling open mic, that usually does help out. So while that's happening in the bottom lane, you've got a level 7 Centaur Warrunner. He's actually chosen to go for 2 in all of his abilities. Highly disagree with his build. When you're playing that offlane Centaur Warrunner, especially if you get the kind of start that you get that Bareface has gotten, you want that level 4 double edge, and that means he can pretty much solo kill anyone he catches out of position. But that second point in return is useless. Return's pretty much a 1-point wonder if you choose to get it. A lot of pro players actually choose to skip return and go for maxed out hoof stomp and double edge. Actually, it looks like I might be having a few mic issues on my end. Bear with me just a sec. Oh, okay. Could be just a Twitch issue then, because I think for everyone in Dota TV, they seem to be hearing me fine. Void Sunner out CS the Wraith King. Wraith King still choosing to go for stats. Do disagree with this build. With the way that Mortal Strike has been buffed in the latest patch, the build that gives you the most consistent DPS on Wraith King is actually 114. If you max out that Mortal Strike, it actually gives you a lot more damage than maxing out that Wraith Fire Blast. Since if you get one crit when in an engagement, that's going to deal a huge amount of DPS compared to that maxed out Wraith Fire Blast. Maxed out Wraith Fire Blast is a lot more reliable, but you probably want to max out Mortal Strike on top of that. Stampede used defensively, glimpses back, so Bareface, bit of misplay coming out from him. Chronosphere committed to this as well. They're finally going to get a kill on that. Silencer comes in with that last one more glaive, could be enough, and he catches him out. Good return kill coming out from Mighty Meepos. Actually,
I don't think stats are good anymore because of that buff, like that 3 intelligence buff. You kind of need it now.
it's a bit interesting. He's chosen to max out Glaives of Wisdom while that's happening. Jackie02, he's going to be taking full, forced to blow Primal Split. That's a defensive Primal Split, but never mind. Could turn around and actually get a kill. There's a Sentry Ward placed, so Templar can't meld dodge that. And Templar's has got to be taking the fall. Lean in Yell, fleeing for his life, choosing not to commit to it since his Primal Spirit's about to wear off, and he's very low HP. That's a defensive Primal Split and a defensive Stampede. Huge amount of space being created for both teams, since they know that without that level 1 Stampede off cooldown or that Primal Split, they can't play as aggressively as they'd like, so that actually gives them the window of opportunity to take towers and take fights while their cooldowns have been blown. What? Diving deep?
Kill the Timber here.
Yeah, he could have chosen to go for it, but he didn't know how much mana he had. If he turned around with Whirling Death, that could have been a kill for the Timbersaw. So Freeman, playing it safe. He's going to have his Reincarnate up very shortly, so he can play a lot more aggressively once he has that up. He's choosing to hold on to his gold so far. So we could be seeing that Blink Dagger, even though they've got a Disruptor. Bareface running on up. Pop Stampede, he's going to be able to catch out the Disruptor. Never mind, he misses, his glimpse back. Saniel takes the fall of that last one, a few more right clicks. And over in the mid lane, Templar hunting Jackie02. Or Jackal O2, my apologies. Lean in, yeah, going for the Treads build. Treads is superior for DPS on the Templar Assassin. The Phase Drum build has kind of fallen out of favor. Will be interesting to see if you choose to go for Blink. By the way she's holding onto a gold, I think that could be a Blink dagger coming out from the TA. Haste Rune bottled up by...
The worst pickup in the world right now.
Yeah, TA, Blink dagger is an excellent pickup on her, since you have so much physical burst damage coming up from her that she could just instantly kill one of the support heroes for absolute entropy. Timbersaw on the top lane, choosing to go for a bit of a split build, so 3 points in the chain, 2 points in the Whirling Death. Usually the two kind of ways to build the Timbersaw, you either max Whirling Death or you max the Timber Chain. A lot of pro players prefer the max Whirling Death build because it's a lot more consistent and a lot more reliable. The maxed out Timber Chain does give you higher overall DPS, but you have to be able to land 2 Timber Chains for it to be able to do so. Whereas maxed out Whirling Death, you get 1 Whirling Death next to a tree. That's a huge amount of damage coming out, and with the Chakram, usually enough to kill a hero. So Timbersaw... Yeah, that's actually another good point to keep in mind. Maxing out the chain is used a lot more defensively, whereas Whirling Death can be seen as a more aggressive build. Jackal O2 moving in, he's got Primal Split and a Haste Rune, double edge being used on creeps from the look of it. Vendetta, no, never mind, it's an Invisibility Rune. Global Silence drop, great reaction coming out from the Silencer, as well as that Stampede providing that covering fire. The two of them flee for their lives, and that's wasting a lot of time from their mid. And while that's happening, Templar Assassin knocking on your door on your tail 1. Clearing out that creep wave. She's going to be having her Blink Dagger up very shortly. One more creep if she has it, if she chooses to go for it. And yeah, Templar Assassin's going for that Blink Dagger. And Freeman, he's got his Reincarnate up now, still choosing to level up stats. He's going for Blink as well, so very aggressive build coming out from the Muddy Meepos.
Yeah, again, I think Mighty Meepos are going in the wrong direction with this. They need their Wraith team to be dealing out damage early on. Like, they have so much initiation with the Blink on the Centaur coming up soon. They've got a Blink coming up on the TA. Wraith King does not need a Blink Dagger.
But the issue with Wraith King, if he goes Treads and doesn't have a Blink Dagger, it's very easy to kite him, and it's difficult for him to get in position, because the Wraith Fire Blast, while it's got a long range, has a very slow projectile speed. So what Muddy Meepos is doing right now is they know that the Faceless Void's going to take a lot longer to pick up farm and to become effective than their carry. So they're going to take the fight to them, take these early engagements, take these pickoffs, and then take towers, and try to get that snowball lead coming in. Freeman throws out a stun over on the Wraith King, over on the Faceless Void, sorry, forces out the time lapse. Weave on 1, but the defensive weave on 2. Vendetta beam pops. Nyx Assassin's gonna turn around with the Timber Chain as well as the Chakram, catches him out. Minor Burn, Impale misses, he's gonna reincarnate if you kill him, you don't want to kill him. He's back, that's gonna be 3, maybe 4, taking a 4 right now with the Wraith King reincarnating back in on top of that. Timbersaw is the first one to fall, Glimpse used defensively to try to keep one alive. Faces Void, fleeing for his life with that weave, reducing his armor. They take 1 off the back of that, Primal Split's being dropped. Bit of miscommunication coming out from Absolute Entropy Gaming. The that's a waste of a Primal Split unless they're able to re-engage. But with all their heroes backing off, yeah, that looks like a wasted Primal Split. So Jackal O2 hasn't been all too great with those Primal Splits. You want to be as efficient as possible with the level 1 Primal Split. Every time you drop it, you want to at least get 1 kill or a tower off the back of that. Using it defensively, not able to accomplish all too much. Now that they know the cooldown's down, Mighty Meepos, they're grouping up. They've got double Blink. They could take this tier 1, or they at least want to contest it. Timbersaw doing what he can. We've dropped on 3. So they've got a 20-second window of opportunity to force this tower down. Since you have to keep in mind Disruptor. Oh, carry on there, Floydian. 1 mil hit with the weave, lean in, yo, going in for blood. Blink, Ray Fire Blast, he's glimpsed back, but Jackal to copy a lot of damage. Silencer runs over the back line. Side trap being used to try to snare him back. Disruptor doing what he can, but he's out of mana now. Lean in, Yao chooses to go on him. Isn't all too much you can do. Refraction charges are breaking. Blinks out, disengaging. Great Vendetta as well as the Impale coming out. Jackal O2 copying a fair amount of damage, but he's very tanky with that Drunken Brawler. Wraith King stuck in place temporarily with that static shield. And they're going to take out that tower 1. They did their best, but they unfortunately weren't able to defend it. They did kill the Silence in the backline, so they were at least able to go for a bit of a trade. But in terms of net worth, we see that the 3 cores for our Mighty Meepos are definitely leading the way with Faceless Void, the only saving grace for Absolute Entropy. He's picked up that Midas. So Midas is a great pickup on Void because he needs levels as well as gold, since you want that maxed out backtrack and that time lock as soon as possible. So he actually chose to go for a very aggressive build, maxing out that time lock. This is something that Loader used to do about last year. He went for the Midas max time lock into Maelstrom and then maybe something like a Mask of Madness or a BKB. Since Faceless Void with time lock, he actually does a huge amount of DPS, since all he really has to build is attack speed. He doesn't necessarily have to build damage early on. But Mighty Meepos, they know that they've got the advantage right now with the cooldowns down for the enemy team, and with the gold lead and the initiation advantage with the blink daggers. So they're grouping up, Wraithkin going for that Armlet Modigian. They're going to take that tier 1 mid, and that's going to open up a huge portion of the map. With the tier 1 mid and the tier 1 top gone, that opens up that space in the map for them to be able to engage. And he blinks in, goes in on Jackalow 2. Minor burn coming out from Nyx, as well as that Global Silence. Jackalow 2 takes a fall. Saint Eel and the Nyx Assassin unable to do a thing. So Global Silence used to ensure that kill. They're able to take that tier 1 off the back of that. They could actually group up and place a bit of pressure on that tier 2 if they choose to do so. But no, they're playing it safe. They're backing away. They know the Primal Split and the Chronosphere are probably off cooldown by now. They don't want to throw away their lead. Dazzle looks like he's going to be building the Mechanism, and Silencer treads up on him. Still a bit too... I'm not too sure why he chose to max out the glaives over the last word. I guess it provides a lot more overall DPS if you get those right clicks in. But I would have thought that the superior silence coming out from the last word would be a lot more effective, especially against heroes like a Timbersaw on the field.
I guess they were trying to counteract the stacks on the Timbersaw.
Yeah, that's definitely something to keep in mind.
Pure damage.
Yeah, pure damage doesn't give a damn about your reactive armor. But Timbersaw, he's only got about 1 point in it, so 4 armor isn't really all too much of a thing to concern yourself with. Dazzle's picked up Arcane Boots, so the supports are very farmed over on Mighty Meepos. Dazzle's level 8, so maxed out Shadow Wave. 2 points up with that Poison Touch. He's going to max that out second. And Absolute Entropy grouping up for a tower in mid, but at the same time, Void, he's at half HP. He doesn't want to risk it. That's the advantage of having a Centaur Warrunner, especially when you have squishy, edgy carries. Blink, Hoof Stomp, Double Edge is enough to kill most carries, or drop them to low enough HP that with a little bit of follow-up from your team, you could easily bring them down. Nyx Assassin, doing what he can. He's level 7, so he's got that max out Impale, but he's severely underfarmed. No Arcane Boots up on him, so he can't sustain his abilities and engagements. And no Blink Dagger, so he doesn't have that initiation. He's reliant on Vendetta, which is good, but can be countered by a few sentries. So it looks like Armlet Modigian up on that Wraith King. They're grouping up for the tier 1 over in the bottom lane. They're trying to starve out the Faceless Void, take as many towers as he can, since they know that even if Faceless Void gets a great Chronosphere, they've got enough defensive capability with the Global Silence as well as the Shadow Grave. So long as they're able to split up and prevent Faceless Void from getting a 3-4 man Chronosphere, they can take these engagements through it. So Centaur Warrunner hiding in the trees, waiting for them to engage. All for one of them to reveal himself so he could jump in with that Blink Hoof Stomp. They're actually grouping out right now. Faceless Void has a window of opportunity to jump in, but he's actually nowhere to be seen. He's over in the top lane. Global Silence being popped. They want to play aggressive. Hoof Stomp actually misses. Jackalow 2 eats a Wraith Fire Blast in the face as well as that Double Edge. Templar Assassin, the backhand, running through, doing what he can. Faceless Voice jumping on that Static Storm. Vendetta pop, Glimpse is being used. They lose to Centaur Warrunner. Where's the Chronosphere coming out? Deciding to hold on to it for now. Primal Split, Earth Boulder. Catches out the Silencer. He's going to be taking a fall. Timbersaw on his ass. Chakram cuts him in half. Templar Assassin and Dazzle fleeing for their lives with the Wraith King. Reincarnate is off cooldown, so he can choose to come back in to engage in these fights if they get a bit too far and overextend. But Absolute Entropy, great defense coming out from them.
Yeah, that was a great team fight. They really needed that.
Mighty Meepos with their heroes respawning back in. The Glimpse catches out as Shrieking Knight. Dazzle used that Shadow Grave to keep himself alive. Blink Hoof Stomp initiation comes back in. Double Edge over the Timbersaw. Chronosphere catches out 4. Gives the man in the war. That's a fantastic Chronosphere, but unfortunately he's too low HP. Wraithkin comes in, says that's cute, cuts him down. Double Edge finishes off the Timbersaw. Templar Assassin blinks right back on in. Drops the side trap. Glimpses him back. Jackalow 2 hanging around the back end, fleeing for his life. Blink, Wraith Fire Blast, he knows the Glimpse is off cooldown, he knows that if he dies, he's got Reincarnate, pops that Armlet Modigian, he's going straight up man mode. Nyx Assassin, no mana up on him, he dies, but that's what he wants is he has that snare, it's a trap. And Jackalow 2 is going to be taking a fall as well as that tier 1. Thrust and counter thrust coming out from Mighty Meepos, they take a fight as well as the tier 1 off the back of that. They could take the tier 2, at least do a huge amount of chip damage off the back of that as well, so they know that Chronosphere and the Primal Split are on cooldown. Absolute Entropy Gaming, they can't defend this. That's a tier 2 they're losing on top of that. So 2,000 gold lead that goes their way on top of the EXP and the gold they get from those kills. Mighty Meepos really showing off the advantage of their mid-game based draft. Since Wraith King, he doesn't really need all too much farm to be effective. If that Blink Dagger, he could constantly engage and disengage. And with Reincarnate, he ain't afraid of no ghost. He could tank everything you throw at him. And if he dies, he'll just come right back with that 75% snare. Quick pause coming up from Mighty Meepos. How do you think Absolute Entropy can turn this game around there, Floydian?
Honestly, at this point, their only hope is to stop overextending like that last fight just happened, and they gotta get the Void farm.
Yeah. So Void,
They just gotta give him room.
that's a desperation Mask of Madness coming up from Faceless Void. The advantage of this Mask of Madness on Void is with the maxed out time lock in the Chronosphere, it will give you enough damage to be able to kill one hero. But the issue with it is once that Chronosphere ends, Centaur Warrunner will hoof stomp, double edge your face, and pretty much two-shot you. Wraith King will stun you with a Wraith Fire Blast and cut you in half. He needs a BKB on top of that Mask of Madness if he wants to fight. And if he doesn't catch out the Dazzle as well, Dazzle with the Shallow Grave, or with the mech that's coming up from him very quickly, can pretty much prevent him, anyone from dying. Since you saw in that last engagement, he used that Shallow Grave to keep himself alive for 5 seconds, gave time for Centaur Warrunner to be able to TP back in, come in with the Blink Hoof Stomp on 2, catch out the Timbersaw that double edge, then TA re-engage. They overextended, they clumped up, and that Centaur Warrunner, that triple blink coming out from Mighty Meepo is really doing work. So Dazzle almost has his mech, that's going to give him a huge amount of teamfight presence.
Oh, yo. What's up?
Aggressively warding, doing what he can. Mask Man has popped just to get a bit of farm. So Faceless Void, while he is a very powerful teamfight hero, he does need a fair amount of farm to be effective, and that's where a lower maintenance carrier like the Wraith King are a lot more effective, since with a Blink Dagger he could do a lot of damage. He could just jump on the back line, stun them, lock them in place. Wraith King, even with very little farm, with that stun and with that Aurus, now that it applies on ranged heroes as well, can provide enough utility for the rest of his team to be able to mop up. Jackal 2, he's been doing what he can, but his primal splits just haven't quite been on the money. In that last engagement, he did what he could. Was able to lock down the silencer, and they did able to get the kill over on him. But without that Blink Dagger, since he's forced to go with phase drums, they don't have that instant Blink Clap initiation. Stampede's been popped! They go in on the Faceless Void, but he walks out in time. They know Stampede's now on cooldown, but Global Silence still isn't. Wraith King's ultimate will be off cooldown. Well, Reincarnate will be off cooldown very shortly. So they'll be able to re-engage, 20 seconds. And he'll have 2 lives once again. With that Ogre Club, I'm thinking probably a BKB. Nyx Assassin's been doing what he can to control him in these engagements with that mana burn, but it just isn't quite enough. Actually, a bit surprised, Wraith King, no magic stick up on him. When you're playing a mana-hungry hero like a Wraith King, who has a critical mana point of 140, you always want to have something like a magic stick, especially if you're playing against a Nyx Assassin. Since if you die and you don't get your Reincarnate off in a fight, that's a huge loss for your team. Visibility.
Honestly, Nyx Assassin is not really a threat to the Wraith King at this point in the game.
Yeah. He just doesn't have enough points over in the mana burn to really be able to control him. And Wraith King, even if he does able to kill him without the Reincarnate, the rest of his team is so farms. Jackal 2 is actually when he spotted up by Freeman. Freeman running forward, he knows he's got the ultimate, so he can engage. He can go balls to the wall and initiate if need be. He probably wants to focus fire down that Disruptor, because Disruptor with his glimpse of Static Storm is controlling the fight. Impale misses, so they've got a small window of opportunity to engage on the Nyx Assassin. And they take that tier 2 without a fight.
We got the Void straight up behind him.
Yeah, but even if he gets a perfect Chronosphere, I mean, we saw in that last engagement, he got a 4-man Chronosphere, and they weren't able to do all too much of it, just because they didn't do enough damage. Void was at half HP when that happened, since he was caught out in the weave. If Dazzle's able to drop a defensive weave before Chronosphere drops, I don't even think he would have killed anyone during the duration of that Chronosphere.
Yeah, they did manage to get the pick off on a half-up here. I think they picked up the silencer.
So BKB on the Templar Assassin, so she could go balls to the wall and engage. Once she pops that Refraction, blinks in, she could choose to just kill the Disruptor, since Disruptor can't do anything to a hero BKB unless he has an Agnum Scepter upgrade for his Static Storm. She could walk right through his kinetic field.
Looks like Void is going Chrysalis.
Very unusual build coming out from the Faceless Void. He's going for Chrysalis, so he knows that with the attack speed from the Mask of Madness, he just has to provide damage for his team. Bit of an interesting draft. I would have preferred a different carry to the Faceless Void. I feel like Void was a bit too greedy of a pick, especially against the Wraith King. Because Wraith King, similar to a Lycanthrope, you group up and take fights once you have level 6, level 7, because you know that with Reincarnate, you're going to take these engagements. So they're going for a safe Roshan. Probably going to be giving that over to the TA. Just because Wraith King with Reincarnate, he doesn't really need 3 lives. If he's reincarnating 3 times in a fight, something's horribly wrong with the game. There you go, he's picked up that Aegis the Immortal, so TA and Wraith King doing a huge amount of deeps in the background. Well, Bareface actually choosing to max out Return over the Hoofstomp. I guess Hoofstomp doesn't actually scale all too well. It's only 50 extra damage and 0.25 seconds of stun. So the more points of return, actually, I can understand that. Throws out... Oh, never mind, he just barely got fogged out. So Jackal able to waltz his way back home. Timbersaw, unable to go for the Bloodstone, actually picks up a Plate Mail. So this Timbersaw has been completely shut down. Keep in mind, the biggest disadvantage of Timbersaw as an offlane hero is, unlike a Centaur who could be effective just with a Blink Dagger, Timbersaw needs a fair amount of farm. You ideally want to get your Bloodstone and Arcane Boots up on him as soon as possible, just because it gives you that ability to constantly throw out your spells in these engagements, and as well as to keep yourself alive. They're grouping up for a mid push, and with this Aegis and the triple Blink initiation with all their ultimates up, Mighty Meepos should be able to take this tier 3. But Absolute Entropy Gaming, they're saying they're down, but we're not quite out. They're digging in their heels. They know that so long as they have that uphill high ground advantage with that tier 3 tower up, they could try to hold this. Since the defender has a significant advantage against the attacker, since you have no idea where the hell they are, Mighty Meepos actually should try to place a ward here, or there, or to place a one on the high ground just to be able to give themselves a bit of vision so they know where the enemy heroes are. Carapace coming out from the next assassin, Monument on him, Weaving drop, Global Sign's been popped as well. Bareface goes in on Jackal, wasn't able to primal split, that's a huge pick off. They land the Chronosphere on 4, who's doing what he can, trying to kill a Dazzle. Great target recognition coming out from him. While that's happening, Templar Assassin running through, Geometry Section being dropped, Wraithing reincarnates. Last word over in the Void, and he takes a fall. That Mask of Madness damage implication proving to be his downfall. Freeman with that Armlin Medigian up, throws out Ray Fire Blast on Saint Eel. Saint Eel takes a fall. Blinks on his corpse. Ward's going to be taking another fall. Actually, he's going to be dying to that tower, so bit of a misplay coming up from him, but 4 for 3 as well as an Aegis. Never mind, the Aegis is still up on the Templar Assassin. So, Absolute Entropy Gaming are able to hold, since they can't push off the back of that, especially with the Primal Split Panda respawning so quickly. Actually, Silence is also going to be taking a fall. That's not your base. The gem of True Sight's been dropped. Somebody take the gem. So Silencer decides that the game's too easy, he's going to provide a bit of a handicap, decides to feed away his free gem. And Absolute Entropy Gaming, they actually successfully defended. Tier 3 barely took the damage off that. They still have their Primal Split up, and they're able to kill the Wraith King.
That's not good for the Radiant.
Overconfidence coming out from Mighty Meepos, that's the only thing I can chalk it up to. But good recognition coming out from the Faceless Void, recognizing that if he doesn't kill the Dazzle, Dazzle will shell a grave whoever he's focusing. And BKB now up on the Wraith King. So you've got double Blink, double BKB initiation coming out from the TA, who now has a Desolator, so she's outputting huge amount of damage. With that meld, she can pretty much two-shot the Disruptor. And so with that gem, Jackal going to do some D-warding. Actually, a huge loss over for Mighty Meepos, and they've lost any semblance of map control they had, unless they decide to buy another gem. Absolute Entropy Gaming can use that gem to de-ward around the map, try to give themselves a bit more control, a bit more vision, and try to continue to farm up their items. Faceless Void has his Chrysalis, so he needs a BKB of his own now so he doesn't get caught out in the stuns. TA blinks in, forces the Vendetta, but one melded almost drops him down to half HP. Stampede's being popped, Faceless Void didn't get the memo, leaps through, glimpses back to TA. Jackal's hanging around, doing what he can. He got the Vendetta next Assassin. Mighty Meepos actually starting to do a bit of a throw. Primal Split's being dropped. Templar Assassin, she got the Aegis the Immortal, so if she dies, she will reincarnate. Reincarnate's not up for the Wraith King though, so if he engages, he has to be fairly careful. Templar Assassin doesn't pop to BKB yet, pops to BKB now, turns around, kills the Faceless Void, Global Sign's being dropped, Primal Split's about to wear off, Timbersaw caught up in the stun with the Wraith Fire Blast, Timber champs himself to safety, Bareface blinks in, where's the Hoop Stomp, where's the Double Edge, there you go. What's about to take a fall? Never mind, good Imperial coming out from the next Assassin, they're actually able to get a return kill. And the gem has been dropped high ground, somebody please pick it up this time and try not to feed it. Chronosphere is up. Actually, the courier picks it up, so good recognition coming up from Absolute Entropy Gaming. But that should be a tier 3 off that. What do you think, Floydian?
Yeah, I mean, they can all be I don't know what Void was waiting. He should have dropped his corner much earlier that way.
Yeah, he should have backed away the instant he saw the Nixus Assassin get jumped on. I mean, he must have assumed they had vision then. Chakram going through is going to burn off all those refraction charges. They're focusing down on range racks first, because they, just in case they have to disengage and not able to get the melee racks. Reincarnate is now off cooldown, but Chronosphere is up, and Faceless Void is alive. He actually can get the greatest Chronosphere of his life right now. Vendetta being dropped, never mind. Timbersaw takes a fall. Even though they're clumped up, Chronosphere won't be enough to be able to win them the fight, and they're able to take that Rex and back away. Nyx poking on through, doing a bit of scouting, but he has to be careful. Refresher Orb picked up for the silencer, so you've got that double global silence coming up from him. So that's 12 seconds of silence. Timbersaw.
Only 10.
So Timbersaw at this point in the game is basically just a melee creep, disruptor, range creep. Once you pop that silence, you can't do anything. No full staff up on the disruptor. Timbersaw, with that plate mail, I guess he wanted to go towards something like a Shiva's Guard, which would solve his intelligence issues, as well as his mana pool, and provide that attack speed snare. But until he gets it, there's only so much he can do. Wraith King leading the way. Looks like he's going to be building towards that Assault Cuirass.
Oh yeah, AC is definitely the right pickup here.
Dire's bottom
Especially with the Desolator and the meld coming out from the TA. Just lets you melt any of the heroes from Absolute Entropy Gaming, since aside from the Void, they all have fairly low armor. Bit of split push happening.
They need this much minus armor.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, with the way the game's going right now, they could easily end the game. Centaur Warrunner knows that he can provide that stampede, so he's just going to do a bit of split push. But it looks like his teammates, they're calling him back. They're drawing on the map saying, what the hell are you doing, mate? Impale flies through as well as that clap, just used to clear off the creep wave. So superior initiation coming up from the players over at Mighty Meepos, meaning they can focus fire on their targets. It means that while Faceless Void's Chronosphere is very powerful, if you're Chronosphere heroes who have more EHP, more armor, and more damage than you, you're going to be in for a bad time once that Chronosphere wears off. Jackal runs for the clap. Blink initiation over on the Faceless Void. Silence being dropped as well. He dies with one more right click. Double silence being dropped. So that's at 12 seconds. They can't do anything. Dazzle's been tossed up with the primal split. He was able to get that off in time. Mana burn over him. Freeman trying to control him. Boulder flies out as well. Timbersaw copying a lot of damage. Silence going a bit too far forward. He's going to eat an impale to the face. He actually could be taken forward. That Vendetta hit, and he does. The Whirling Death finishes him off. Bareface trying to land a two-man Hoofstorm. He gets it on one on Jackal. Freeman, he's got Reincarnate, but doesn't have enough mana. He's in danger zone right now. He's going to be very careful. Nyx Assassin been controlling him as well as the Centaur Warrunner very effectively. But Templar Assassin killing everything. He doesn't even need a team at this point. They've done their job. They've forced the enemy team to blow off all their huge spells. And with that haste rune, he's going to be able to get one more. Never mind. Drunken Haze overpowered. It's giving him that dodge chance. One meld hit, one more right click, and that gets the kill. Drunken Haze just wore off. So Saint Eel, unfortunately, eats that Desolator hit to the face. And that's going to be the bot lane Rax. While that happened, Wraith King actually did die in the background.
Dire's bottom barracks have fallen.
That Mask of Madness with the Chronosphere. Shallow Grave being dropped a little bit too early. But Faceless Voids now, he's not going to be having all too much fun. Yeah, 2 racks down. Significant golden EXP lead in favor of Mighty Meepos. 20,000 gold lead, 32 minutes in, 15,000 EXP lead. GG being called by the Film Boys. And that looks like it. Game number 2, Mighty Meepos are able to secure it. Who actually won game 1, Floydian?
Radiant victory.
Oh, okay, so it looks like it's a draw of a series, so great plays coming up from both teams. Any final thoughts on the game there, Floydian?
I don't agree with some of the choices that Meepos made, but I mean it worked for them. That's all that matters in the end.
Yeah, pretty much. If you destroy the throne, I guess at the end of the day, they were able to pull it off.
Entropy needed a different carry because Void, there's no synergy with anyone on their team outside of Disruptor.
Yeah, they picked up too many melee heroes to go with the Void. If they had a ranged lineup, if they had something like an Ancient Apparition or a Lich, I could understand. But Void with a Timbersaw and a Brewmaster, there's only so much they could do. could have really benefited from a different carry hero. Oh, go on.
I feel like they relied way too much on their team fight potential. Like the only reason they won that team fight because Brewmaster fought back in that team fight and Primal split.
Mm.
But after that they keep losing. The global silence.
Yeah, that global silence, that 5th pick silencer really was the fly in the ointment. So that looks like it for tonight. I think it's like, what, 2 a.m. for you guys over in North America? It's about 5 o'clock on my end, so I'm actually going to just have some dinner. So that'll be it for tonight. Will be uploaded up over on YouTube, so 49 is the channel name. So a big thank you to both Floydian and the captain of, was it TheFierySnake? My co-casters for tonight. Alrighty, you guys have a good one.